Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Titans as well as the latest episode of Van Helsing. Like always, if I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time I'm going to start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you don't want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Titans, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Van Helsing. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Titans. A lot of interesting things that went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had the whole situation with Dick. A big focus in the episode is his imprisonment, obviously him kind of getting locked up. I was curious whether or not he'd get any other treatment because I'm about to say, because the cops are kind of giving him a rough time because, he beat up other cops, but at the same time, I'm like, he is still a cop himself because he's a detective, but I guess that doesn't really mean as much. So he's getting locked up, and obviously for Dick, it's like, no matter what happens to me, I deserve this. When that other cop is like, yo, you do me some favors, the fact of the matter is I can put you in a more favorable position in this prison. But for him, it's like Dick doesn't want any favors because like he's done helping people. Because truth be told is when he's helping people, I guess because also in his mind it's like helping you would mean just be self-serving myself. I don't deserve any help. So for him, it's like I'm not going to help anyone because I don't deserve any favors or anything. I need to be punished in whatever form that comes down, even if I'm surrounded by the general public, a general populace, and end up having to, get my ass kicked. I think for him, it's like, that's just how it is. The cop throws him in a cell with other people, letting him know, like, yo, sure thing, detective, trying to make it hard on him, but Dick doesn't really care because for him, it's just like, whatever happens, it's whatever happens. So he ends up finding himself kind of smack dab in the middle of what is potentially a prison break, at least by his three cellmates, because for them, they're in this compromised position of they're being sent back to their own country, but they're also people who are connected to this gang life that they try to walk away from. But it's that type of thing of once you walk away from it, like, because they want to be left alone and free, like, hey, their gang won't come after them if you kill Dick. Because why? Because he's a detective. Part of me almost thought that cop that was pushing Dick to be like, yo, I tried to put you in that cell, try to prove a point, and the fact of the matter is, you know what happens when people are buddy with the head honcho, kind of comparing himself to the head honcho and being like Dick, that if he's working with him, or at least the other prisoners perceive him to be working with him, he's going to be hell to pay. But I was thinking that Home Dude had set that up to kind of push Dick to be scared for his life. So it's like, okay, I'll work with you. But obviously that's not going to matter because that's what I was also curious about. It didn't come up in the episode really, but I was curious, like, if Dick got into a fight, would he actually defend himself? I mean, I doubt it'd be like an instinct thing. Well, I mean, we do see that some aspects of his situation is kind of an instinct. Like when Jason got super pissed and tried to attack him, he like laid him down in like one hit. But it's like, that's kind of an instinct thing, but I'm wondering, would it kick in for Dick, or would he have to fight that urge and would he let his ass get kicked? Or even to the point, like, he's even suggesting, like, oh, the only way you're going to be okay in a situation, rather than worrying about escaping, if I were y'all, I would just kill me because that's the easiest thing to do. And I think, once again, just Dick's not in the right mind because for him, it's just like, I need to be punished for the whole Jericho thing. It's like, you made a mistake, and that's the sad thing, and I think that's any hero's, when a hero falls, like he fell hard because yes, he's made mistakes in the past. The whole thing about the dude who killed his parents, that ended up having ramifications because that led to people from the circus, his family, most of them, like 95% of them getting killed. And I think, but for him, it's like, at least in this way, it's like, no matter where the rest of the Titans are, they're better off without me. Like, I don't even have the right to even think or worry about them because I lied. I did all this terrible stuff. And once again, it's something Rachel brought up. And I stressed it last episode too. It's sucky that like the rest of the Titans want to kind of blame Dick so much. But it's like, you all had your own part to play in all of this too. And I think that was kind of a point Rachel was trying to get across too. Like, don't kind of act all innocent. Like, you all have fucked up. Which that kind of plays into Rachel's part of the episode, but we'll get to that soon enough. But for Dick, he just didn't want to care about anything. It's just like, I'm going to serve my time, whatever it is. I deserve the maximum punishment. But it's like, he's doing a lot of self-wallowing and pity. And it's like, what you need to do, but he can't see past it. And I think that's a good thing for a character where it's like, you're so low that you can't see like there are other ways to handle this, but he just wants to punish himself so much because it's like, it's the only way he can, and it's like, well, in all honesty, what does punishing yourself do? It's not going to bring Jericho back. It's not going to ease the pain of, Jericho's mom and Slade, which I'm sure you're not trying to appease Slade anyway, but more so his mom and just everyone. The fact is you used him, you want to make this up to Jericho in some shape or form by punishing yourself, which I'm still circling back to. If you didn't catch what I said last week, I still believe Slade is actually Jericho and Slade. I think probably at the last second he possessed Jericho. Jericho might have possessed Slade's body. So who Slade was might not even be in here. There might not be any Slade Wilson anymore. It might purely be Jericho, or maybe both of them occupy the body. It's hard to say. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it more, I'm thinking Jericho's 100% in control of the body before his body ended up dying. Because remember, before the whole thing played out, Dick had passed out, so he didn't see the aftermath of those situations. So I think that is something we're going to circle back to. So I don't think Jericho's dead, but for him, regardless of the situation, he blames himself, so. But more so than anything, all this does is kind of, play into it's like, to alleviate your guilt about this situation. So, I mean, it's so sad because while he's locked up, so much shit is transpiring. And because you want to punish yourself, because you're walling your own self-pity, so much stuff is going down wrong when you should be out there helping fix everything. No matter how broken the Titans might be, you should be there as any good leader to, even when things are down, when everything's against you, you have to step up and fix this broken family. It's kind of on him to do it, But like I said, he's just not in that mindset right now. And even to the point he's telling these dudes, constantly not to do this situation, not try to do the breakout, because the fact of the matter is it's not going to work. You're just going to get yourselves killed. But for them, they believe it's that one dude talks about that. I forgot what it was. It's like a legend about a bird, and it's like it watches over us. And he's like, if it watched over you, why'd you get picked up by immigration? Why are you in this position in the first place? Why are you in this prison cell about to be deported? It's like, but for him, it's like he believes, and it's just like, and even the other dude was like, you think I'm going to die? Maybe I will. But the fact of the matter is, if I don't survive, maybe if I die, that means it was my time. The fact of the matter is that, but if I survive, that means that there's something else out there, that I'm meant to be something or someone else, meaning that this is how my story is supposed to play out, that I'm supposed to get away and be able to become a different person. And it's like, truth be told, he was saying that maybe at the end of the day, Dick is the one who's blind, that the fact of the matter is maybe you're here for a purpose or a reason, and I thought that was kind of a nice sentiment, and I think it kind of got Dick thinking about the fact is the fact is that they're so intent of it, despite everything, they're not letting such things kind of keep them down, whereas him, on the other hand, is kind of, like I said, being riddled with this guilt. So when it came time for their escape, because it's sad that other dude that was, helping them ended up getting killed, which once again, that cop dude was the first one, that a guard was the first one over there. So I'm like, I don't know, man, it just seems a little suspicious. I'm just waiting for the ball to kind of get dropped that's like, oh, he's actually a really bad guy, that at the very least, he's working with other guards in the prison who are bad guys, but we'll see. Regardless, they were trying to make their escape, but it didn't work until Dick stepped in and he fought off the guards and basically helped them escape, which the guard comes at the end and kind of knocks Dick in the face, with the butt of the gun, being like, I thought you weren't going to help anyone. But I think for him, it's like, despite everything I've done, at the very least, I can do some good. They're trying to change everything, and at least they're trying to making it, if I don't do anything, they will die. And that's just as bad as me just, sitting back and doing nothing. Maybe if I'd stepped in sooner, the other dude, so it's that thing of that sometimes, yeah, bad outcomes happen when you do stuff, but the fact of the matter is, if you do nothing, things could be so much worse. So I think for him, for these two who are trying to change things, I think he felt at the very least, they're striving for that second chance. And it's like, so what's Dick going to do with his second chance? I mean, whether is he going to take it, or how's that situation going to play? Because it's not like he escaped from prison, because that would just cause more issues. But I'm curious to see what happens. I get the feeling it might be a thing of Bruce ends up coming to him and being like, yo, what are you doing? And tries to talk him out of it. I mean, Bruce has got the reach and pull and the finance to kind of make something happen in that regard. Whether he actually will or not, we'll see. Because Dick is actually, it says he's supposed to go to, obviously he's being sentenced to 7 years, but the trial itself hasn't happened yet. But we'll see how. I mean, usually it takes a while, with the judicial system of trials coming up. So we'll see what ends up coming out of it. But I think at least this episode ends with Dick feeling at least a little bit better of hey, I helped them escape. At least I did something, and what they make of their lives is up to them. But I think there's always going to be that hero side of, that wants to help people. Even when you try to bury that hero side and kind of think that you aren't one, I think this episode proves that there's still that hero in you that wants to help people when you find the opportunity to. So I think that's kind of interesting. And on the other side of things is everything with Rachel, which is interesting because I was wondering why Rachel kind of abandoned Donna, and it's kind of what I was bringing up earlier. They're just as guilty as Dick is. Dick made his mistakes and stuff like that, so yeah, F him. But also the others, because for her, it's like, I'm a kid, and I thought all you adults had it figured out, but it's like, it's not just Dick that kind of messed up. You guys don't know shit either. Looking at the grand scheme of things, all of them, it's like, you guys are just as lost and as, it's that thing of where kids are under the impression that adults have all the answers. No, they don't. They're still trying to figure stuff out just like you are. I mean, it should have been prevalent because the fact is that Dick was trying to figure himself out all last season as well. I mean, literally everyone a part of the Titans was last season. So, but for her, she ends up meeting a new friend. And I think for her, she kind of wants to start from scratch because it's like, they probably thinks to herself, like, adults just aren't worth it. I'll find people kind of closer to my own age. And there's this lady who's, I guess she's kind of got like an abusive boyfriend, but, Rachel kind of steps in, which I still think it looks so cool when she kind of activates her powers and her eyes go red and black like that. I don't know why. I don't know. It's so like, I like that demonic look because I'm sure it's supposed to be representative of like Raven's thing in the comic books, or most iterations of her, where she kind of like her demon side kind of kicks in, where she looks a little bit more like Trigon. The fact is her skin turns reddish like his, and the fact is she gets the multiple eyes like Trigon does. Usually it'll be like under her purple cloak, and like you'll see like her, because her face is usually covered in shadow, at least based on the original Teen Titans cartoon. And the fact of the matter is her eyes will go red. Like obviously they'll glow red, and then eventually she'll gain more, like that's the more and more like pushing heavily into the dark side Raven. When she has the multiple eyes like her dad, she's definitely shifting more into Trigon than herself. But seeing her friend kind of getting a little worried about how she was looking, she lets the dude go. But because Raven's under the impression, Rachel's under the impression, like, I think, like, no, I can handle this stuff much, the adults don't have any answers. The fact of the matter is, I'm free, being able to finally be free on my own. That whole conversation she had, they had the whole conversation about lizards. It's like, yeah, they had the babies have that lifespan of like 5 months, but at the very least, it's them being free, no adults kind of screwing things up or screwing them up. But the thing is, she's under the impression that she has everything under control, when in actuality she doesn't, because part of her power goes off, possesses a gargoyle in her body, and then it rips that dude apart. And when we see him, he got clawed up. Even his left leg, like half his left leg is missing. And so it's going to be interesting because it seems like a group of kids, kind of like her friend introduces her, like, hey, I found someone who can help us. So I guess they're kids who are kind of living on the streets, kind of running away from their own respective situations, which in the grand scheme of things, as messed up as the Titans are, for Rachel, they are the closest thing she has a family. It might be that thing of like, you don't realize how good you had it until it's all gone, It might be that situation. We'll see. But I think like that situation, it's probably going to get a lot worse than before it gets better, just because that gargoyle is most likely kicking it around. So any person that has, Rachel has agitation towards, that gargoyle might attack. Her powers might just go wild when she, because she kind of was trailing it back in, but it almost seemed like she was kind of struggling to pull the darkness back in and let that dude go. So it's still that thing of like her humanity, because she hasn't really talked to anybody about it. Like, the only person that knows about it is Gar. So she hasn't really taken time to really get it under control. But, I think like any teenager, you get rebellious and you think like, I'm hot shit, I know all the answers. She's kind of in that mode right now because she's like, oh, fuck these idiots. They don't know what they're doing. I'm better off on my own, not kind of being confined to anyone else's rules, because in her mind, it's like their rules were hypocritical. They try to make me into this Titan or whatever, but it's like, look at the mess that they are. So it's like, who are they to really guide me, or judge me? So we'll see where things kind of go. Obviously, Donna's kind of flipping out and freaking out because by the time she gets back to Titan's Tower, it's like, oh, shit went down with, Beast Boy, Gar's side of things, which we'll get to soon enough. But it's like, just everything is, I think the title of this episode is Fallen. So it's like everything is literally fallen apart. So in many, many different facets. So there's that. Obviously, she still can't get in contact with Dick because she doesn't realize he's in jail right now. So there's that. But then there's the whole situation with Gar, who's trying to get in contact with Dick as well. Doesn't know he's in jail. But it's like Gar is, freaking out and worried. And obviously, Connor is telling Crypto to leave because it's like the fact of the matter is I'm in trouble. I messed up and did this, but you find you did nothing wrong and try to scare Crypto away. But Crypto's not going to abandon him, which is like, it's so adorable, especially because his hands held, like Crypto puts his paw out and Connor's got his hand. It's like, it's like man's best friend, dude. I love that type of stuff. And so Crypto ended up getting Gar to come, try and talk to Connor, which, for Gar, it's like, yeah, like he's like, I get it. Like you messed up big time and everything, but it's like, I get it too. Because I have something like that on my conscience because he killed that scientist last season. And that's something he still hasn't forgotten. And I thought that was kind of, it's something where he goes like, I can understand messing up. And the fact of the matter is almost like we can't let our mistakes kind of define us. Like the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people out there who count on us, who need us to step up and be heroes. So we can't let our mistakes kind of be what stop us. So... But granted, and it was also interesting too because Mercy, at first, like we saw her, I was like, "What's this got to do with it?" I was like, "What's it?" I didn't, because I guess because like usually when we first got introduced to her, she had her hair slicked back, and I don't think any of it was curled. So seeing her hair down and curled, I almost didn't recognize her. I was stiff. I was like, "Oh, this British lady." It didn't click in my head until like she gets caught. I was like, "Oh, that's Mercy." I felt so stupid for not realizing that was her. I was like, "Was it some random family?" And like, she's like, "Oh, we'll play board games," and like, it's like fish, and it's like, I don't like fish. It's like, you don't have to eat it unless it's like vegan options or something. It was just kind of like, and she was talking to what I guess is her wife in the situation, was kind of like, yeah, I mean, they don't like fish. And she's almost like, it's weird to see you with almost having like potentially a normal family. It was weird, well, just because you wouldn't expect her to have, I mean, I guess because I guess in my mind, when I think of Mercy, I just think everything Lex Luthor is. I mean, maybe it depends on the iterations of her, but I feel like usually everything is centered around Lex Luthor. So I wouldn't even think she'd even have her own family. But I mean, maybe that speaks to volumes about what she went through in this story of like, yeah, I can't make Lex my everything. I got to have something on my own. But the sad thing is, it almost seems like she has this like family that's just kind of like, she's trying, and the sad thing is it feels like she has to try to spend time with her family, because it's just like, it looks like not only the kids but her SO seems kind of like, it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem, I don't know, it's just interesting to see her kind of struggling in the family department, and maybe that in itself kind of speaks volumes about it just not being something that comes natural to her. But hey, we get this little glimpse into her personal life, so we'll see if we get any more to kind of add more to that. But the whole situation of them coming, breaking into Titan's tower and capturing all of them, Crypto, and taking down Gar. And I thought it was interesting because you have, Mercy trying to talk Connor down. It's like, Eve sent us and blah, blah, blah. The fact of the matter is we can help, now that we've seen the issue, we can shift things and make it so that you're more, because for one, Connor feels like he needs to be locked up. Much like, Dick, I think for him, it's like he's kind of a similar thing of like, I messed up, I hurt those cops, I don't want to hurt anybody else. So if you can fix me and make me better, they want to try. It's like, because the balance of Clark Kent / Superman does not gel well with Lex, because those are such polar opposites that clashing would kind of psychologically on a mental level screw up anyone, personality wise and everything too. So he lets himself be captured. Then there's the whole Gar situation and her being like, the fact of the matter is, I don't want to change you, cure you or whatever. The fact of the matter is, I can make you better. We can train you up, fully find out what you're capable of. Because that's interesting, because like, once again, that's something they've only dabbled in a little bit. It's the whole aspect of Gar. His go-to thing is transforming into a tiger. I think, wasn't that earlier this season, or was that last season? No, it was earlier this season. He turned into a snake, I believe. That's the only time he's shifted into something else, which obviously, Beast Boy can turn into a rain, but maybe that's because he doesn't have quite access to that. I was like, maybe we could, if that ended up being the case, I was like, maybe that leads to him learning to shift into other things. But for him, he has no interest of working with them. It's like, he's like, I want to be a Titan. But what was interesting was, at the end, Mercy was like, yeah, let him return to the Titans. Like, I'm like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? So either that means like, hey, let them go back to the Titans, let the Titans get built back up, and then when the time comes, we'll set Connor on them because they'll repro Connor to be more Lex Luthor than Clark Kent. So actually, like, get rid of that hero side of him and make him more like Lex, maybe. Or that means that they've done something to Gar, or it's like, lead us straight to the Titans because we're going to be tracking you. I don't know what to kind of make of that. I did like that he's like, I want to be a Titan. You see it kind of bothered Mercy, but it's like, all right, we'll use that to our advantage in some shape or form now. What case? I don't know. But I'm very interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up leading us going forward into the next episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Van Helsing. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, it's kind of interesting. We have a little bit of a bonding moment between Jack and Vanessa because there was a whole kind of discussion of family. And obviously she's asking Vanessa a little bit more about her mom. It's like, oh yeah, because Vanessa can understand the whole aspect of like, right, you know, not really having your real family around, you know, because Vanessa really doesn't know who her dad is, which the fact is that's still a lingering mystery. I'm curious to find out what that's all about. But then it's also like, yeah, I met my mom literally the day she died. And it's like, yeah, that kind of sucked. And, you know, she's like, it's a long story, but Jack is like, we got plenty of time. So I guess, you know, off screen, she ends up telling her that. But they end up going to that place that's from the visions and everything. And I'm so curious about that place because obviously it's like, there's multiple versions of it. Some of them seem to be kind of like a astral plane type of thing, like where she was when her mom died. But then again, I guess the one she was in, because she was saying like, oh, even though they both weren't real, both people, my mom died in one and Scarlet died in the other. Makes you wonder, is there some significance to that? But I guess it's like, this is the real area and the others are just projections, because I guess it's because this place is so important. The different places need to fulfill certain roles. Like obviously the one from the end of season 3 with that particular area was meant to be where the fourth was created. But I guess like this real area is where the dark one is made. So I guess it's kind of like finding the right pathway there. And obviously the light leads to the end of the darkness or whatever. It's kind of what Sam was kind of saying. So it's kind of like, okay. But nevertheless, all three meet up. Vanessa, Violet, and Jack. And now it's the whole thing of filling in the blanks of like Jack telling Violet telling Jack that like basically their entire lives were a lie, which obviously Vanessa can understand too, because she was kind of, not to the same extent obviously, but she was kind of made in a lab too, you know. So it's like the whole thing of like, I mean, granted hers was from a young, well, to be fair, it was kind of a similar circumstance, right? Because I kept thinking it was like when she was much younger, like when she was actually a kid. But it's like, no, they did the exact same thing to her, like mixed the Dark One's blood in, very similar to Violet and Jack's situation. So it's history repeating itself, you know? So that was kind of interesting. But the fact of the matter is they're kind of in this together trying to figure out this whole situation. So they activate some gate that takes them to what I guess is essentially the Dark Realm. It's, you know, kind of like a dark mirror image of that area where we find Abraham, which I guess it makes sense that Abraham's a twin, that he looks just like Jacob. Because I don't remember if it was something in season 3 or was it, I could swear it was something earlier this season that pointed out the fact is that Jacob and, because I think I might have mentioned that in the review being like, in one of the earlier reviews being like, oh yeah, isn't Jacob and Abraham twins? Because I thought that's where this direction of things going with, Jack and Violet were going. I think maybe that's where my thought was. Regardless, I guess because I thought Jacob had a twin himself. I didn't know Abraham was his twin. I thought Abraham was his brother, but he had a twin. I thought something like that, and that was a secret, you know, sibling, and that led to the, you know, eventual production of, you know, Violet and Jack, but it turns out not to be the case. Abraham is the twin, and it's so interesting to see that they have gone down two separate paths, because obviously Jacob failed to be, you know, becoming an elder, but Abraham sacrificed himself by pulling the Dark One into the Dark Realm and locking the Dark One away because there was no weapon made. And obviously Vanessa brings the book and everything, but it's like the pages necessary to make a weapon are, you know, and because the fact is the Van Helsing family has been so fractured, I guess because specifically after Jacob's situation and Abraham disappearing, like I think it's the whole thing of like obviously the Van Helsing family kept going for a little while, but obviously like when it comes to like the current generation that was being Scarlet and Vanessa, they had no idea about everything. I guess because there's so few Van Helsings left, because all that was left was their mom, and then them, and now it's Vanessa and Scarlet. I mean, that's Vanessa, Violet, and Jack, which I guess by the end of it all, I didn't even think about the parallels to that. I don't think I did. I might have brought it up before. I don't think I ever thought about the parallels. Well, it's just like, well, Jack and Vanessa kind of have like regular names, but then there's like Violet and Scarlet, both named after colors. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they did that on purpose, regardless of the situation. But maybe maybe Vanessa was referencing something else when she said there was kind of a split in the Van Helsing family. Because I'm wondering, did it have to do with the fact is that Lily was basically in a coma for hundreds of years or whatever? You know, maybe not. But regardless, it is a situation of like, well, for Abraham, it's almost like, was it all worth it? It's like I literally sacrificed myself, hoping that one day some Van Helsings would come here with a weapon to kill the Dark One once and for all. And it's like, you're telling me it was all for nothing because we've yet to actually make a weapon. You know, there's no records of the weapon. I wonder who took the page. It might be like the brides and everything like that. They might have taken the pages out to kind of prevent the Dark One from ever being killed. Like, you know, I'm assuming maybe Hansen might have them, but we'll circle back to that. But nevertheless, at the same time, we have the whole Jack situation of she's kind of getting pulled in by the Dark One. It is interesting. I wonder why. I guess there's always going to be that fate of like one sibling is always going to be pulled to the darkness. In Abraham's case, it was Jacob. In Vanessa and Scarlett's case, it was Vanessa. In the case of Jack and Violet, it seems like Jack kind of inherited the darkness. So it always seems like that's kind of almost like some Cloak and Dagger level stuff of like there's always going to be like, you know, the divine pair. One will always have to sacrifice himself. So it's in this case, it's more like one of them will always be consumed by darkness. And at the same time, that's also the conversation too. The sad truth of being a Van Helsing, it comes with sacrifice. You know, Abraham sacrificed himself to put away the Dark One. Scarlet sacrificed herself to save Vanessa to keep the darkness from consuming her. And obviously you make the argument where things kind of stand where it's like Vanessa made a sacrifice for Jack and Violet. So it's, you know, it almost seems like it comes with the territory in a certain regard. But what was interesting, though, it is that sad thing of like, it almost seems like no matter what Vanessa does, it seems like she can't escape the darkness because Jacob sees in her, he's like, oh, the darkness in you, it could end up swallowing everything and everyone. So it's always kind of like, oh, despite everything she's done, what she tried to change, the darkness in her is growing too deep. I mean, I think more so than anything, it's because of the Dark One's blood. Like, she kind of never stood a chance. It was almost just kind of like predetermined that darkness will have, you know, it's been in her for so long and has had a chance to fester and grow stronger, whether it's just because of the situation with the Elder back in season 2's finale / you know, season 3's premiere, like with the Elder biting her and everything. It activated, because obviously that whole aspect of the red glowing eyes, her becoming so vampiric, was after the Elder bit her that kind of awakened. I guess it awakened what was already there. So it might have awakened at some other point, but I guess like the Elder just kind of hastened what was already there, you know? At the same time all this is going down, you have Sam. I was wondering why he was just kind of letting Violet go, but I guess it's like he knew that was going to lead them all to being together and lead to this whole situation. And you had the Oracle being there being like, oh, like the fact of the matter is we're connected. I thought you were kind of, you know, supposed to be something so great. You have such great potential, yet here you are so small. And for him, his, you know, he is under the impression that he can become the Dark One, that he'll play his part and become like basically he will rise to become the Dark One rather than what ends up being the case of him being possessed by the Dark One. Regardless of the situation, it is a pretty intense fight. I talked about it in the season. I might have talked about it in the season 3 finale and the season 4 premiere, but I really like how Sam fights in this form. Like the fact is he uses his claws, but at the same time he uses his horns to fight. I did like that, you know, it seems like Vanessa kind of stood a better chance this time round, but then it still seems like Sam still comes out on top because he ends up, you know, ripping into her stomach a little bit and then slamming her on, piercing her with a cross, which that was brutal. And I guess it's supposed to be a little reminiscent about the Hook situation of like, obviously because of her rapid healing, her body's healing around the cross. I'm sure like you're in so much pain and you're bleeding so much, it's making it hard for your body to function, even with the rapid healing, because your healing's just healing around the cross, much like the Hook from season 3. But regardless, I thought it was kind of interesting, and Sam kind of telling that story of like, he always liked the story of Frankenstein in the book, because it's like the doctor made the monster, Frankenstein made his monster because just to see if he could, which is kind of, you can make the argument, because it speaks volumes about their respective situations of like, why Vanessa and Jack and Violet were all created, because they could be. It is kind of something that should be noted, that it is interesting that despite everything, because that was something they brought up, Hansen lied, because obviously Jack is out there. So it's like they were under the impression that only Van Helsing's around were Vanessa and Violet. So it's like, why did he hide? I mean, because obviously it's like, because I was wondering about that, because I was kind of idiotically under the impression, like, I don't know why it didn't click in my head of like, right, like Hansen's just as much Jack's dad as he is Violet, just because it's like, right, they're siblings and everything, but I guess for some weird reason I was thinking like they had different different adopted parents, that's what I was thinking for whatever weird reason. I don't know why I was being an idiot about that, but regardless, the thing is, I guess at the very least, if he has to sacrifice one, okay, but at the very least he can make sure that his other, I guess because Violet was there and he kind of had no choice, but at least with Jack, he can at least have one daughter out there safe and fine and away from all of this. I mean, granted, she would have been a target afterwards anyway. I guess he was planning on keeping her as far away from this and avoiding like her Van Helsing side from ever awakening. But, it makes you wonder, and like I said, and eventually it would have all kind of caught back up anyway. But regardless of all that, you do have Sam, playing into this, and the Oracle, making him kind of be the sacrifice, and, he ends up being the portal, and because of that, he ends up dying, which I like that. I'm wondering, like, when, the Dark One rises and she blows the kiss, and he kind of turns to dust, was that her doing that herself just because of how powerful she is, or was it because he was already deteriorating and she just added more flair to it? Which, obviously, doing something like that just makes me think of Shiva. That's kind of like a go-to Shiva thing, especially like in Final Fantasy 10 and 15, that being like the whole kiss thing. Regardless, it immediately made me think of that. It's like, oh, poor bastard. After everything Sam has done, lo and behold, this is all. But I guess for him, it's like, he hated being human anyway, because it's like he was born with a human trying to fit in, trying to care, when in actuality he was kind of this monster to begin with. But it's like, I don't know, part of me wanted Vanessa to kill him after everything he's done, whether it be Susan, Muhammad, just all the people he killed in season 1. You kind of want him to kind of get his justice, or Felix. But I guess in an argument can be made, hey, he did, because he didn't become the Dark One like he wanted to, that all his, ambitions, all he had going for him kind of came down to nothing. Which I have yet to talk about it, but obviously Dracula, the Dark One, is played by Trisha Helfer. Because I kept being confused, because I was like wondering because I was like, I thought I remember it being like, Trisha Helfer is going to play Dracula, but I wasn't sure, because I kept thinking like, is something going to change the Dark? It's like, oh no, the Dark One's always been a lady. Not like it matters, but I just thought that was kind of interesting, because I kept thinking like, because I figured she was supposed to be Dracula, and I was like, oh, maybe I misunderstood. I was like, maybe she's supposed to be another one of his brides or something like that, but it turns out that's not the case. It's actually kind of pretty neat, because like I think the last thing I've seen Trisha Helfer in prior to this, which is also interesting, because she's kind of best known for Battlestar Galactica, isn't she? I think so, which, sci-fi's like pushing, because you can watch all of Battlestar Galactica regardless. But prior to this was her Lucifer, where she played the goddess. So it's just kind of interesting where she goes from like one powerful being to another. In this case, I mean, to be fair, she went from one powerful being to Charlotte, because she became Charlotte again at the end of season 2 and stayed Charlotte throughout season 3, and now being Dracula. Me kind of overthinking things. But I thought it was kind of interesting, especially because it's like the Oracle is like, no, like, it's almost kind of like, no, pay me attention, I'm your special one, I'm your first and only, which Dracula is like, if you were enough for me, I wouldn't have had other brides and stuff like that, essentially, kind of showing that the fact that matters, you failed me time and time again. And at the moment she starts paying attention to Vanessa was like, oh, you're going to try and make her one of your brides. That's going to be interesting. Well, I also like that little effect. It's only in that little bit where, like, brings the oracle towards her, like she uses telekinesis. There was almost like this after image of her that appeared behind her. I was like, oh, I kind of like that effect of whatever that is. But it's a whole thing of like, oh, like, if you're here, where the rest of my brides? Why aren't they basically showering me with love and their devotion to me? Why am I not, devouring that devotion of them? It's like, oh, you came here by yourself. It's like, oh, despite all that you do, your schemes to always be so important to me, you failed. And it's actually kind of heartbreaking because you see the oracle be like, no, it's like, I'm trying to please you. It's like, it's almost like, it's a relationship where it's like, it's a, God, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know what the word I'm looking for, open marriage, but it's a situation of how because, it is interesting because I don't think maybe I'm not that familiar with a lot of iterations, but I feel like Dracula never really gets. It's just interesting that Dracula's getting. Well, I guess it kind of makes sense because it's like, at one point kind of referring to Vanessa as a concubine. So I guess it's kind of like, Dracula's got her own harem, which is pretty dope when you actually think about it in the grand scheme of things. And I guess like traditionally Dracula kind of does. I guess I don't know. It's always, I feel like a lot of stuff always kind of tends to lean towards Dracula being like, oh, my one and only type of thing. But I guess if anything, it would have been Vanessa, just because Vanessa impresses, Dracula so much. But regardless, I did like that moment of her kind of like being like, oh, I'll keep you around, but those two, your offspring, which I'll circle back to that in a second because I completely forgot to talk about it. She's like, I'll spill their blood. And Vanessa kind of goes into mom mode a little bit. Her eyes glowing red. She's like, stay away from them. I'm like, I don't know why. I get giddy about that stuff. But regardless, that's a big point I forgot to overlook. I love because I brought that up last review about like that question of like, is it going to be a thing of they're both Vanessa kids? Or are they both going to be Scarlett's kids? Is one going to be Vanessa's kid and the other one's going to be Scarlett's kid technically? But it's like, no, turns out they're both Vanessa's kids, which I like it. I think it's interesting because it's like, I like that this episode kind of answered a question I literally brought up in last week's review. But yeah, I like that look in her eyes being like, wow, that makes you our mom. And it's just kind of like, I think for Jack, because Jack already likes Vanessa, and on top of finding out like, holy crap, no wonder I have a connection to you. No wonder I like you so much. You're my mom. And for Vanessa, it's that weird thing of like, holy crap, like I got more kids out here. Wait, what? Because she was under the impression the only kid she had was Dylan, which is actually kind of a sad situation. One, Dylan will never get to know her other siblings, which technically means that they were out there this entire time. You just were unaware of it, So there's that. Plus, Scarlett will never get to know all of her nieces. That's kind of a sad thing. And none of her nieces will ever get to know her, depending on how that situation ends up playing out. Whether there ends up being anything more with that, I don't think there will be, but regardless. So I just thought that was kind of all an interesting situation. I think it's going to be really interesting. Well, I was about to say like when all the brides get reunited, but we're not going to see that quite yet, them getting all reunited with Dracula, because Vanessa's playing into of like, no, let me serve you, let me be so special and important to you. And it's like, oh, we'll drown out this world in darkness. But Vanessa is like, nope, like no one fucks with my family. So she grabs Dracula and throws her in the portal, and she locks them both into the dark realm. We have Jack staying behind to keep the Oracle busy while Violet is getting away with the necklace and, the book, which I'm assuming at some point in time she's going to run into either Axel or Julius, or maybe both, because they're still, out there somewhere. I would assume if anyone, Julius. And it's sad because her and Jack literally just got reunited, and now Vanessa made this sacrifice, which the fact is, it's a good thing, because it's like, hey, there's at least a little bit of hope left. And also, Vanessa made a point to be like, the darkness that's in me is in you too, Jack. You need to fight. Because so many times she gave into her darkness. So she's telling Jack, is like, be better than me. Be better than your mom. And kind of, which is so interesting because what did Vanessa say? She said the first day she met her mom was the day her mom died, which is interesting because Violet just met her mom. And it's like, under these circumstances, Vanessa's not dead, obviously, but still. It's an interesting turn of events. It's kind of interesting. I like that the fact that this entire episode was circled around all of that. So I'm really curious to kind of see where things go. Because I was wondering about that. Because I was like, yeah, we're literally at the halfway point to the season. A little more so, obviously. But it's like, I was wondering because we had seen hide in her hair of Dracula. I was like, is that going to end up being a whole, like, at the very end of the season thing? Because I didn't think it would be. I thought that'd be kind of weird. But I was like, oh, I guess so. But it's like, no. Well, we'll see if we get more of Dracula going forward. Maybe we'll kind of get, more back and forth between Vanessa and maybe Dracula, she's trying to convince Vanessa. Because, like, obviously, like, Vanessa might be kind of sealed away with Dracula because it seems like she's not in the same place that not Jacob, but Abraham is in. So we'll see, ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's not all. Really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.